Hi guys, and welcome to the channel. Today we'll be looking at the Iwata HP-CH. Iwata South Africa did send me this brush to have a look at, so thank you very much. Before I even used it, I took it out of the box to try and keep it as clean as possible, and the first thing I noticed is how solid and robust this airbrush is. I'm sure this will last you a very long time. And the version I have here is of course the 03 needle, and just looking at it like this, you can definitely see the made in Japan quality here. Everything is just crisp, clean, sharp, looks very nice. Just to feel the brush in your hands, you can just feel the quality. I don't know how to explain it. It's very solid feeling. And this is a 11.5mm diameter brush, so with that comes a slightly thicker needle than you might find in other Chinese brushes. Looking inside the cup, it looks very standard, nothing unusual. And everything you touch on this brush is just super smooth. So that goes down from the trigger action all the way to adjusting the needle limiter. And there's the air valve. I'll get back to that a little later. Mac valve, of course. All very nicely finished. Chrome, flawless. Basically what you'd expect for a brush in this price range. So yeah, let's have a look at the parts and see how it's put together. So here's the end cap, which is very standard. I would have liked to seen one of those pinch caps, but nevertheless. Here's the nozzle cap, also very nicely finished. I think there's some paint on there. The needle polished, and as I say, it's a slightly thicker needle. Basically what you'd expect from a brush of this caliber. Needle chuck, also very standard, nice round edges, super smooth, everything well machined. Particularly the threads, as you can see, are very nice and smooth, just as in here, all very nicely made. Nothing much to say on this part. And here's the trigger. It's got a little ramp at the back. I'm not such a big fan of these small triggers, but yeah, it works. And that little ramp you can see there, so that's quite handy. And this is the way the trigger fits into the brush, which is I haven't seen before. So that prevents it actually from flopping about when you're taking the brush apart. And what I did notice is this nice big square part, so that the needle chuck has got a nice place to purchase onto for a super smooth action. Some nice threads cut here to the end cap, and everything about this brush is just solid, smooth, slick. I don't know any more other adjectives to describe it besides what I have already mentioned. Some nice engraving. And there you can see the little ramp that the trigger will slot into, and a huge purchase area for the trigger to press down on the air valve. Just make sure to grease these parts. Yeah, finishing on the body, it's immaculate. Couldn't really expect anything more. And this is how the trigger fits in. So you need to rotate it to make sure that the ramp is at the back, but don't put it into deep, because then it won't rotate, as you can see there. So just lift it up, rotate it, slot it into the little grooves, and then you're good to go. So once you've inserted the needle, so the needle packing is also very nicely adjusted. The needle just slides in with minimal force. And of course the threads are just super duper. Everything works nicely. So there we have the HP-CH. But yeah, I'm not going to paint any lines and dots. I'm actually going to paint something specifically for this video. So here I've chosen a fantasy type portrait, and I picked up the brush now for the very first time, and I'm trying to get this detail down, but I soon realized that the valve spring is just too stiff for this kind of work. So either I'm airbrush unfit, or I just don't know what I'm doing, which is probably the case. So I scrounged around in my space box, and below the gold looking spring is the original spring. You can see it's quite a thick spring and quite dense, and on top is the spring that I found, much softer, and that made a huge difference to the valve action. Not so much the pulling back to release the paint action, that's always smooth, but just the valve action I found, for me personally, just to be a bit stiff. So unfortunately, even with that mod, I found that the brush just wasn't fine enough for this kind of work at this detail. So I'm just going to speed through this first section, for which I used another brush that I had here, an 02, and we'll cut back to when I use the Iwata again. So here we go. I'm now using this brush where I think it, for this scale, is more suitable, which is the shading and this sort of hair. And as you can see, you can pull these lines very nicely. It can come down to detail, which is not the problem. It is when you're holding it at a constant pressure, when you're doing the small details like eyelashes and stuff like that. I just found the spring to be just too stiff for that sort of use. But for this hair, very nice, very smooth, it atomizes beautifully. The brush feels solid in your hand. It's not going to fall apart. It's going to last you a very long time. And every time you pick this brush up, you can just feel that there's Japanese quality. So that's very nice. So we'll just speed through a bit of this, but I did this painting specifically for this review. I'd like to thank Iwata South Africa again for sending this brush to me to have a look at, but I would be very keen to try one of their other brushes, so that might happen in the future. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and like, and yeah, this was the Iwata HP-CH. We'll see you next time.